A very, very good evening to you, our viewers, and welcome to In Focus. It's the old, same, entertaining, informative, and of course, very celebrated In Focus. But it's a whole new face altogether, and thank you for the great messages. I've seen them, you welcoming me on In Focus, and I'm very thrilled. I'm very honored to be taking over this show as the host, of course, and you're there to be informed and to be, to bring you all the analysis and all that you need to know about the current affairs and the topics that are making rounds in the country. Welcome to In Focus, and welcome to this new, of course, version of what we're going to discuss about. Shortly, I will introduce the topic and, of course, the panelists that I have on this show. All right, welcome back. And of course, it's the 3rd March 2019. And this is the, like I said earlier on, it's the new version of In Focus. And it's me, Ethan Tashobia, your host, your new host, to be specific. And tonight, we are talking about UMWIHERERO 2019. We are covering a number of issues that are actually prerequisites for national transformation. To discuss this, I'm joined by, a very entertaining, very informed panel. In my immediate left, Mary Barikunjeri, the founder and the director of Rwanda Women's Network, gender and development expert. Thank you so much, Mary, for joining us.
Thank you.
It was a short notice.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, and thank you so much for being flexible. And of course, next to Mary is Thierry Kevin, my friend, Gatete. I don't know if I... Thierry Kevin? All right, human rights lawyer, activist. How do I introduce you?
Doesn't it be clear?
Next. All right, and of course, next is Godfrey Kabera, Director General of National Planning at the Ministry of Finance and Economic Planning. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen, for coming over on In Focus. I'm very happy to that you made my debut as the host of In Focus. We have quite a number of issues to talk about this evening, but mainly it is UMWIHERERO 2019. It was supposed to be starting. It was supposed to be in this week, and it was postponed. I think it's because the president was traveling, and he's always the chair of the one who chairs UMWIHERERO. All right. Let's dive in straight into this UMWIHERERO 2019. I should probably start with Terry.
If you continue calling me like that.
Gatete.
Okay.
Gatete, ladies and gentlemen. Gatete, let me specify, so that I keep on remembering it. There's a time I saw you. I don't remember if it was the 14th or the 15th edition of UMWIHERERO. I saw your face there. And, I wanted to interview you, but I was like, no, next time. What does this UMWIHERERO actually mean in your own perspective as an analyst, rather, and a researcher?
It is. I think it's within the. Thank you very much for inviting me, and congratulations. I'm thrilled to be here.
Thank you.
I'm happy that you took over this. I think you're going to do as great or even greater than Eugene, and I wish you all the best. So let me start with that.
I give the credit to Eugene. And thank you so much for all you did for In Focus.
You just need to get my names right, otherwise everything else so far is perfect.
I know Gatete at least.
Okay, so I think the UMWIHERERO, you have to look at it within the context of dialogue and consensus.
Yeah.
And the government of national unity and power sharing. But in this case, that's the broader perspective. But the narrow perspective, it's accountability. We have Imihigo, we have UMWIHERERO today, and UMWIHERERO is an opportunity for people for government and leaders to discuss at length, openly, to speak openly to each other, with no journalists, with no, it's a very engaged and open conversation of accountability. Everyone is asked what they have done in the year that passed and what they have failed to do. And so you have leaders of the army, of the local government, of the central government, and of major institutions being questioned on their performance of the year. But this is a much rather open and candid conversation. Now, if the media was there, headlines would be flying in all sorts of directions, which is probably why the media is not there, and which is why probably the event is very, very, very open. So that's my perspective to it.
All right. Thank you so much for that. And actually, that's why I wanted you to introduce this, because from an outsider's perspective, it was very important that we get to understand that. But let's go straight to one of the issues that were discussed last year. Godfrey, you were there.
Yes.
I think I remember very well. You're there.
Yeah.
Rwanda's current status in relation to its development targets. It was one of the the presentations that were made. But this is something that is going to likely come back in this, and we want to understand, especially on the 7-year government program, and where and the Vision 2020, it was revised, of course, with the GDP targets revised from $900 to 1,200, 240. Where are we? We are just 1 year to the end of Vision 2020. Of course, we are starting the Vision 2050 very soon, I think. I don't know if it's still. But let's start from the Vision 2020. Where are we on the status of Rwanda's transformational targets?
Yeah, thanks, Athan. Again, it's a pleasure to be here and to be able to engage on this very important topic. I think the most important thing is that Vision 2020, when we revised it in 2012, we actually revised it upwards, which was a good thing, because in many other countries, sometimes people tend to move downwards with the targets. So it was not only the target that was revised, it was not only about growth, it was not only the income per capita. Actually, we revised a number of targets where we had actually exceeded what we had before. For example, on life expectancy, for example, what we had to do with access to financial services. We included things like climate change and many others. So a lot of the targets had actually been achieved, and when we revised the vision in 2012, that was the UMWIHERERO that looked at it at the time. We actually wanted to increase the targets because we wanted the vision to remain relevant. We didn't want it to be something that is bypassed by what has actually developed, or what the developments that have happened. So as a consequence, we also looked at what does it take to become a middle-income country. When we did the vision targets initially in 2000, when the vision was developed, the vision achieving middle-income country status needed $900 per capita. Today, it has increased to above 1,240. So about 1,240. We gave some room for margin as well, because we didn't want to keep on revising all that. But today, we are still back on track. We have on a number of targets. I think the growth target is a bit challenging. We needed to do 11.5% growth every year since, on average, between the period of 2012 and 2020. On average, we've been doing about 7%, so that's something that maybe needs to be some extra efforts. However, we've done well on most of the other indicators, such as access to health, access to education. Looking at most of the infrastructure indicators are on track. We've had improvements in poverty, even though it slowed down over from the last household survey. However, there's still optimistic that we can reach that target. So I think overall we're doing okay, but growth we need to do a lot more, especially in terms of accelerating exports, reducing the trade deficit, and also giving another big push, I think, to poverty reduction. So overall improvements in social indicators, livelihoods, for example, when we look at life expectancy, that's something that combines a number of indicators. If I don't go into each and every one of them, we have exceeded the target that we had increased in 2012. We are already at about 67 years of life expectancy, which is, again, beating what we had in the vision that was revised. So that just goes to show how the integrated development model that is inclusive is having impact in terms of the lives of people. And then we keep working on the growth aspects to make sure that we can catch up with the lost growth.
Not everything was revised upwards, of course, and even the targets were not reached, especially in the electricity sector, energy sector. We're still doing bad. If you look at it, there was an expectation of 70%, electrification, and I think by sometime last year we were about 53%, 30%, if I remember very well. So there's still some way to go on that, and actually that's what one of the comments that President made in the closing of last year's UMWIHERERO.
Yeah.
That we need to do, the government needed to do much more on a number of aspects, including power.
Yeah. I think the good thing with things like energy, if you look at where we were when we started about 10 years ago, there's been more than threefold increase in access to electricity. We are nearing 40% of access. We have good opportunity to catch this up with a combination of the on-grid and off-grid. Previously, off-grid is a new sector in the country, which is, when I talk of off-grid, I mean access to solar energy, for example, lighting households with solar energy. That's something that wasn't there a couple of years ago, and now we've introduced that. So I think we're optimistic that by 2020 we'll be very close at least to meeting those targets if we don't exceed them, but there's a lot of effort needed. I think the most challenging ones are usually on-grid. It requires a lot of infrastructure outlay, but on the off-grid part we can do a lot of progress in a short time.
Sure. Mary, let me bring you into this conversation. Of course, you've seen the progress made. You've also seen some challenges here and there, especially in the service sector, service delivery, the service sector itself. He has talked about financial service, one of the sectors that are doing well. But there's a lot more to be done in the way, especially the public and the private sector offers their services. And this is one of the things that Rwanda has not been doing well. What we call customer service, customer care and everything, and even the way these government officials and the people offer their services. What can be done? What can be done to improve this? Because this is something that keeps coming every other day when the president is actually speaking, or when any official is speaking. They emphasize on this, improving service delivery.
Yeah. Thank you so much. I think for me, service delivery, let me look at it from a bigger perspective of where we think service delivery needs to bring citizens to participate in the whole conversation. And in bringing in citizens to participate, to understand already the services that are there in place for them, and also getting them to actually hold the service providers accountable is so key to making sure that the service delivery at the end of the day is achieved, because they know there is somebody watching them. So in that whole process is how do we get the citizens to participate meaningfully? And I think this is a debate at much lower level, at the national level, where we are now into private sector conversation, where we are looking at poor engagement of even urban citizens to really engage and understand how service deliveries should be delivered. So we have been encouraged very much to sort of, pinpoint where service is not good, and to feel very comfortable in saying, no, this can't be. And I think that approach of citizens to feel that they can hold any service delivery, be it at the hotel, be it in the banks where their queues are so long, to come out and talk about issues that we don't really see working well is so important. At least we always be ringing a bell to those who are supposed to give services. But I'm much more keen on service delivery at the lower level, community level, where especially my work is involved, where we are looking at the health sector and looking at the health systems, how are they delivering, and being so proactively to bring citizens to really speak to the poor services has helped tremendously to see change. And especially where we're using the community scorecard, where communities are scoring about good services and bad services, and eventually we bring them into interfacing conversation where eventually citizens and the service providers and then local authorities, where eventually we take our grievances to the policy makers to be able to look into issues that are not really working. So participation is key. It's so important that citizens feel part and parcel of the whole process. So I look at it broadly from that perspective.
Talking about participation, let me probably bring in an activist right here. There's an issue with, when you look at some of the debates, this issue of interface, the issue of consultations and engagement keeps coming back, and actually, somehow, it's into the service delivery. How can consultation, especially public to, the civil services, the governments, the leaders, the local government officials, the way they interchange and the interface and, engage with the local citizens, how can that be improved? Because this is one thing that actually affects service delivery, if you look at it.
Let me respond to that. Let me narrow it to one specific problem. So you see, and picking up from what Godfrey has said, citizens discuss with authorities only because they see any interest in it. They can come the first time. If they see that they have not achieved what they needed to achieve in that meeting, they will stand up and leave, or they will not show up next time. And in this particular case, if you're talking about economic transformation, we're talking about agriculture. We're talking about access to factors of production. Now, if you look at this relationship between authorities and the citizens, the agriculture sector has had major issues in it. Because so for instance, if you have to have one crop, and so it's monocropping, you have the authorities come to you and say, we found you a new crop that is a cash crop, it's going to make you rich. Now you uproot your own crops that you've been, with the knowledge that you've had for a long time. Now they give you a new crop and you use this crop, you farm this crop. But for you to farm this crop, agriculture, you have to have fertilizers, you have to have irrigation, you have to have pesticides, you have to have storage, you have to have transportation. It's a whole value chain. Now, if one thing doesn't work out in the beginning, that you might not actually optimize profit on that particular crop. And now when the authorities come to you and say, we know what's best for you, they better know what's best for you, and they better stick to what they promised you. So sometimes they know best, but usually in agriculture it's known that it's the people who know best. But sometimes when they come with a new crop, they introduce a new crop. Just giving you a specific anecdote. They give you a new crop. That means if it's a new crop, if they delay in bringing you the quality of the crop, the seedling, if the seed is not of good quality. When I grew up, I used to see my grandmother plant a maize tree, and the maize will have three stems, three maize. Now in Rwanda, it's only one tree, one cone. And that shows you that the quality of the seed of maize is not of good quality because maybe it's been imported, maybe it's not developed locally, maybe it's not consistent with the soil. This erodes citizens' confidence. Okay? And so when you talk about citizen participation means what we agree with the authorities, we will deliver, and they will deliver. At the end of the year, if we discuss, you both have to deliver. So participation has to have an incentive to it. You don't participate if there's nothing that you're getting from it. So I just wanted to give it an example to narrow it down, because I thought this conversation was going to be about economics, and I wanted to narrow it down to the specifics of what participation entails. It's a contract between two parties, and each party has to meet the other party halfway, and if you do not meet it once, if you're the leader, if you do not meet it twice, the third time the citizen is going to say, okay, I'm going to stay.
But let me just interject here, because when I'm really talking about participation for me, for the citizens, we should not just assume that they don't really know what they want. Let's give them opportunity to think. Let them give them opportunity to value, that they can also bring value to the table. So that as we decide on what is best for them, at least we will have had understood what their interest is or what their needs are. But if we continue to do things the way we think we do them best. We do fantastic things, but at the end of the day, sometimes
they're not involved.
They're not involved, and it's not, ownership is not there. So we need to find, Gatete talked about interest. If a person is not interested about their own lives or what they want to achieve for their own, for their own benefits of their own children, their own farms, their own, so what else? Why shouldn't they be interested? So I think is how we approach it. So we need to be proactive and accept that we need to listen to them, we need to hear them, and I think that's where the role of civil society is. So let's be proactive and then feed in our government, feed in so that we are really developing programs that are people-centered. We keep saying this, and therefore we need to make sure that the approach completely changes, so that we may not say that citizens have no interest or don't come forward. I think they would come forward because we've seen this in the communities. And especially where now there is a IMWIHERERO process. IMWIHERERO has been fantastic. It has encouraged citizens to want to engage, to want to understand. And now, working towards accountability of what is happening at their district levels, for me, I find it slowly and surely coming up. So let's continue to engage citizens because it's very important.
Talking about IMWIHERERO and participation, there's no better person to actually respond to this than Godfrey, who is in charge of planning.
Planners.
Planners. At what point do you actually bring in citizens' ideas? Because, well, yes. I'm not saying that in most cases the government has brilliant initiatives, and because citizens at some point they don't see it right away like the way you see it, you end up implementing it. And then probably some of them realize that it was better at a certain point in future or when it has already been implemented. But at what point do you bring in people's suggestions and opinions?
Actually, I think just to link with the discussion that was happening just from my two counterparts here, everything that is being done for the Rwandan people. So there's it's not really a question of who knows best and us against them kind of thing. It's not even like we are parties, in my view, we are not even behaving like parties to the contract because this is a mutual thing. So we have to do it together. I think the most important thing is that there have been challenges shown in the past that people said, in some of these cases like on performance contracts, maybe we don't get enough information about what is being done, or do we get targets that we don't understand, and that kind of thing. But we've started since about 3-4 years ago to give a specific time when we have to actually consult the citizens before we get into the business of performance contracting. So these consultations start right from the village level. It's actually provided for in our planning time frame. We have a full month when we do that consultation. We usually start our planning process around September and October, and between that time we have to collect all the priorities from the Mudugudu, from the village level to the district, and all that is then included into what we plan. So when we go back to the opportunities, when we have to go back to the citizens and show these are the things we picked, and these are the things we left out. So that's a process which we are improving on the feedback, but the consultations, we have that there's this systematic consultation that comes from the village level. We have what we call InFocusRW, what we call councils. These are citizen councils, I would call them in English loosely translated. And these are places where from all these levels people gather and they can discuss and say this is what we need actually. So sometimes the resources, of course, are not enough to capture everything that everybody wanted, but that's why it's a partnership. We actually have an opportunity, we have a partnership where sometimes we say things which the government cannot cover, can they be covered under through citizen participation? Let's not only look at it, as I said, through that contractual obligation. There's also a partnership where we can both deliver. For example, we've had cases where we do projects at the village level. Some people mobilize resources, they can do some small works and get the Mudugudu can fix a road. Government can give some co-funding for that. So some of these things, we've seen a lot of homegrown solutions that have come out of those simple kind of examples that have been rising from the village level, you get to the top. So citizen participation, I think we need to broaden the thinking about it. There's collecting information, there's feedback, there's accountability, there's partnership in delivery. And that partnership in delivery includes both accountability in terms of what the leaders have said, if we are going to give you this, given the available resources. But there's also where we have said we need citizens to also behave in a certain way. We need people to start feeding their children well. We need to send children to school. We don't want to get people and physically force them into classrooms and so on. But we provide the infrastructure, take your kids to school. So this is, I think, the kind of thinking we need to have around citizen participation more broadly.
They pledge to do it themselves, right? They say, this year we're going to ensure our children have we'll have a garden where we have vegetables so that children can eat vegetables. So they pledge these things themselves. There's household Mihigo.
But there's household Mihigo, but there's also local government Mihigo. Correcting information. There's this thing called cooking numbers, especially in performance contract. I'm using the word cooking numbers. Of course, Marawi is Guteke, and you find, because districts want to perform better, districts want to come in among the top performers, and they end up, inflating numbers, exaggerating numbers, just to come top. And this is something. Yeah?
He has done research.
It's a mantra.
So through IPAR, he has been assessing, so he can tell us.
I've been evaluating performance
contracts. Yeah.
This is how it works. So this is how you evaluate performance contracts, so that you understand that these cooking numbers is not going to.
These are allegations that are out there.
So it is. It's basically, if you go to a place and you're going to evaluate, you do 3 phases. You do audit. That means you look at all the papers that exist. So there are works that have been done or commissioned by the district. They will have to show you the contracts, how they call for proposals, who bid, the bidding process, the selection process, so that you understand that there is no corruption in that. So that's day one. We sit, we have a team. They all come with boxes of documents, and we go through every project they did and look at the contracts. Now that's the audit. After the audit, we have a second session where we have interview, focus group discussions with the leaders. So that's Njanya, Nama, Nyobozi, na JAF. That means those in executive council, those in the advisory council, and in the Joint Action Development Forum, which is private sector and civil society. So that's focus group discussion. So the things that we saw in the papers, we can complement this with the focus group discussions, where we ask them what actually happened, and then they speak to us. Now that's number 2. Number 3, we have what we call spot checks. We have big teams of research sisters that we have trained that go to physically...
To the citizens down there?
No, they go physically. So we have we have spot checks. Spot checks means we actually deploy researchers. I don't do that anymore, so I can speak openly. Yeah, we send researchers to go into the location where the project is, or where the cow is delivered to the citizen, and first of all see the cow with their own eyes, and speak to the owner of the cow and how they received it and so on. So even if you cooked numbers, the research team, the evaluation team is going to find out it is true that we have found out that when they say the project is 80% in completion, but when you go to the field, we find out that the project is completed only by 45%. So this is okay, but if you say cooking numbers, it cannot be the outcome of the findings, because even if someone cooked the numbers, you can find out, because we have teams that go in doing this. And one more thing, if we go the second year, we have an indicator on sustainability. That means even projects that were implemented, that we evaluated the year before. So if there was a house that was built the year before, when we go to do performance contracts this year, we have given a mission to verify if that house is still standing, or if it's been destroyed. So while you can say they might cook numbers, the evaluation process will find out if numbers have been cooked. So I've been hearing this for many years.
But this thing has happened. There's a time the Prime Minister mentioned it. He was actually, challenging local government leaders to avoid that habit. So that means there's no smoke without fire, Gatete, right? No, according to an analyst,
I'm giving you the methodology.
the research,
I think the
exactly,
problem
now,
which is true,
that
which
is the
fine.
methodology. It's not
That's
infallible,
fine, but
you see, the
Mary.
problem is it could be a perception.
It is a perception.
And if it is a perception, we need to be able to research and make sure we bring out that, scientifically. So, I think if it's being talked about, and as you said, there is nothing, no smoke, whatever. So we need to make sure that there is a research that's really going to assess citizens' perception. Because citizens' perception can be terrible to the country.
exactly.
And we need to avoid this. Rwanda is performing so well, and we don't want to hear this hearsay business. So we need to find a mechanism that can be holding some of these perceptions and put the statements correct. So I don't know who is in place to do this.
It's in
the
Rwanda.
researcher?
Rwanda is a country of perceptions.
Exactly.
When you have a perception, there's nothing you can do to undo them.
Yeah, so let's hear from
So
the
maybe,
policy maker.
maybe Hassan, let me just come in on that. I think there's we are working, government institutions is a system of comprised of many agencies, many institutions. A lot of things are delivered at the district level. So there's a lot of information that flows between people, even if you put in information systems and all that, someone feeds that information in. So I think just coming back to what Getete was saying, there is no, you can never say 100% everything, every figure is 100% correct.
Yeah.
There will always be people who can try to get short-term points because of particular positions they have or whatever. But the important thing is that it is not an institutionalized kind of practice. So the government is very strict about this issue. Whenever we have data, we try our best to make sure that we're using verifiable sources. We've had a big change in the methodology for measuring the imihigo, which I think is very important for you to know. We have shifted away from reports that are based on outputs and processes and so on. We are now using more of a results-oriented or results-based evaluation system. What does that mean? It means that the National Statistics Institute checks with the data they have whether what we are reporting actually is what has been shown in the different surveys that they have. So good enough, we have more frequent surveys in most cases. We're able to get it at district level as well, disaggregated per district. So we can look at those and try to match them and say, are we doing progress here, yet we can see indicators on the other side are not moving or not, then there is a question. Second thing is that independent evaluation he talked about. We are not the ones who evaluate anymore the government progress on our own. We do monitoring, regular monitoring, field visits, and so on. But at the end of the year and in between, over the course of the year, we have a mid-evaluation. People go and check, is this what is being said? Is it actually there physically? And also in terms of results, are they getting to the outcomes? I think that's the most important. Let's not look at, did we have a building that was completed 90%, but it's not being used? Then today in the methodology, we have adjusted those kind of things to say, we need to look at what's the final outcome of such kind of investment. Are people going to school? Is the health facility constructed? Is it equipped? Is it being used? So that's why you see in the last year we actually had quite a significant reduction in the imihigo marks because there was much more stringent approaches being adopted every year.
Okay, next. Of course, we are coming halfway into 1 hour timeline that we have, but let's briefly talk about one of the issues that were discussed last year, fighting corruption. You also mentioned about accountability. Of course, there are numbers out there. Transparency has rated us, International has rated us among the best performers in the region, in the continent, but there is still some sort of corruption in all its manners and covers. How do you see Rwanda performing in terms of fighting corruption and even accountability itself?
I think Rwanda's performance on corruption, I think really we are doing well.
We see the numbers.
Yeah, because when you compare with other countries in Africa, Rwanda, I think, is not the worst. So especially what I want to bring in more is around the gender-based corruption, because TRI has done some research. And that research came out with clear issues, challenges, and around corruption. And one of the major findings was that the high percentage of corruption, gender-based corruption, was much more in public and private. And of course, some also in the civil society institutions. And they came to realize also in the same, that in the same research, which was the percentages were high. Here they were looking at 85% women victims, and also 85% men who are perpetrators, but who are also perpetrating the violence. So, and then in that same report, as I was looking actually at it, I came to realize that the percentage that were given, the 85%, the reasons, many reasons that were picked out was mainly lack of integrity and also weak systems to hold them accountable. And also you find that also the young female agreed quick to want to get rich. And so in that report actually shocked us when we saw how they were ranking the young women, female, who were trying to get richer quickly, and and that drives them to becoming, to also be part of the whole gender-based corruption. So in all this, but there have been also mechanisms. When such reports come out, it also helps to report. People come out freely. We have begun to report about the gender-based corruption in the workplace, especially. And also Ombudsman's office has put up a desk which is supposed to help citizens to report cases without fear. So that has helped immensely to be able to continue. But also many organizations are now bringing a lot of awareness on radios, also in the communities, talking about these issues. Especially some of us have also decided, like in my organization, to create safe spaces where people can easily walk in and report about cases without fear. And of course, working and collaboratively with the police, that has helped tremendously. So the fact that there are those systems in place, those are able to help us to curb it. But with research, that has even become more helpful, because reporting on the situations how it is, then it has given people confidence to feel comfortable to come forward and talk about the issues that they are faced in their workplace. So we need to continue to raise awareness. We need to continue to advocate for especially systems to be in a place that should be able to curb that.
Strong systems.
Yeah, strong systems.
Are we building strong systems to fight corruption?
Yes, we are. But I want to bring in another aspect.
Okay.
You see, why do countries fail to fight corruption? Corruption is one of the things that is consistent in most countries in the world.
Yeah.
And what you'll see that in the world, people have nets that are very effective in catching small fish, but they can't catch big fish. So you wonder what kind of net that is. But the reason countries fail to address corruption is because people who are corrupt are the people with the power. So for you to be able to hold someone accountable, you have to be able to compel them to deliver, to justify themselves, and to stay above the law. Now, the consequence of corruption is that you alienate powerful people when you start demanding, which is why in some countries people have just made it law. So in America, for example, corruption is accepted, it's law, it's called lobbying. If you are a politician, you are allowed to raise money, to give out favors, to dish out contracts. It is okay, it's accepted, because they just realize they can't deal with it. They just can't deal with it. In Nigeria, presidents come and say, I'm going to fight corruption, and then when they get into power, they look at the magnitude, they have heart attacks. Usually, all of them systematically, as soon as they become president, they have heart attacks because of the magnitude of corruption. Now, there's a neighboring country where a judge was asking a general of the army about corruption, and the general said, listen, when I was fighting in the bush, where were you? Who do you think you are to ask me? These are realities about corruption. Now, in Rwanda, if you look at most of the people who are in exile today, why are they in exile? It's because me, I did this, I did this, I did this, I did this. How dare you question me? I want my young brother to get a job. I want to get a loan in the bank. Right? I want to jump the queue. I want to be in front of the queue. Now, the consequence now, corruption, you can only fight it if you can. Now, if, another anecdote, if you have a constituency, if you say, I come here because I represent this group of people, that I'm their member, like in Somalia, I represent this clan. Then when you have corruption, when they remove you, and remember, there's no single international media that questions corruption if a politician is arrested, they will say it's a political. Magufuli, the president of Tanzania, he came up to fight corruption within the ruling CCM. Every media you see, they will tell you that Magufuli has become authoritarian because he's eliminating political competition. That's it. If I say I want to run politics, I could steal anything outside, and no one is going to say that it's because of the corruption. They're going to say it's because of the politics. So when you look at when you talk about corruption, you have to look at the price of it. It is costly to accept it, especially in countries where resources are so small, and we have to share it parsimoniously and equitably. But it is also costly to fight corruption, because the consequences, I think Rwanda is the only country that I know, for example, that has elite enemies living abroad. Other countries don't. You know why? Because of patronage. If you want to oppose the president, he gives you. He gives you. He gives you. So corruption becomes a governance device. That's this is an interesting subject, maybe for another time. But
of course,
yeah,
for another time. Unless you want, you don't have 1 second to fight.
One sentence on that. I think importantly, we've been putting in place a very strong legal framework to tackle corruption. I think it has been on the agenda of several leadership retreats. I think over the last 2 or 3 leadership retreats have come back to this issue of corruption, which shows how important it is that we tackle this issue while it's still manageable. Because as you're saying, in some countries you see this has gone out of proportion. I think one of the important laws which has come in is the one that makes corruption a lifelong crime. So if it never ages, which is something that is very important, that even if you don't get caught today, you'll get caught tomorrow. So I think that's very important. There's a lot of other things that have been passing through, whistleblowing and so on, that protect whistleblowing mechanisms and so on. So I think the fight continues, but it's being given the prominence it deserves.
The fight continues.
Just before we move on, I'm sorry I'm intervening a lot.
Yeah.
It's okay.
One of the things that has addressed petty corruption in this country, the most effective thing, it's e-government.
Yeah.
E-government is an excellent tool. If you bring it in Nigeria, they're going to hack it and kill it because you put so many people out of jobs. So e-government is the thing that reduces interface between the officer,
the public official, and the citizen.
And it's cashless. Whatever you want, you do it in front of your computer. You don't get to meet with the... I lived in a country where you apply for a visa or for a work permit. They give you their number instead. You meet in a restaurant in the evening to discuss your work permit. You understand? So e-government, there's e-government in every sector, including in the justice sector. You file your complaint online. You know when your case is going to be heard. Normally you have to go and discuss with the judge and ask him to give you a date. You know, everything is everything. So the moment you create this wall of technology, you reduce the amount of opportunities for corruption. Even the police traffic, now you can't give them, they can't keep your papers anymore. They scan you with the... So this is an interesting device that is being used to fight corruption.
Mary, I will not allow you, unless...
No, quickly. I think what he's saying, it's true, it's interesting, but we need to be able to see how many percentages of our citizens can really make good use of such e-systems. So I'm just speaking from a perspective of that lay person who is really not so conversant with the e-systems. So we need to, it's a very good one, but we need to see how are we going to bring everyone on board, especially our citizens who are also yearning for justice.
That's right.
That's what I just wanted to chip in.
I think a quick one on that. Mobile phone technology is going to be a big answer for that. It's a game changer. The penetration rates are above, close to 80% and above in certain areas. So I think it will be a big, it will have a big impact on both the aspects of corruption and, of course, the service delivery, which we were talking about earlier.
Talking about technology, we have a few comments about this topic, and we set it out earlier. There are a couple of comments, suggestions. I was asking these people what should be discussed in this leadership retreat. A couple of suggestions here. They should discuss, this is Emmanuel Bikorimana, they should discuss on persistence of malnutrition issues and why not engagement on nutritionists in health centers doesn't get considered as a priority to invest in knowledge and fighting against malnutrition as professionals. There are more, but not considered. I think these are nutritionists that he's talking about. There's also a gentleman called Pinto, says, I guess, Ethan Tashobia, you should tackle the issue of border closure. In this border closure, he just mentioned, I think, the neighboring countries, the issues with the integration and all that. In this contemporary world, we can't have a closed economy. Last year, they talked about, during last year's leadership retreat, one of the presentations was about Rwanda in Africa and beyond. And this Pinto brings up the issue of closed economy, like the way he stated it. We're having issues. Good enough, I was reading one of the regional papers. The Prime Minister of Uganda came out to say that, called for calmness, and they're saying they're going to look into the matter. And it was like a fresh, breath being put into this whole saga that has swept Uganda and Rwanda relations for the last couple of days. What does this mean in terms of Rwanda's situation, Rwanda's presence in Africa, Rwanda's presence in East Africa and beyond? Gatete?
You start with me? This is where we live, this is where we are located, and this is the neighbors we have. Unlike in a house, you can't choose your neighbors. So these are the neighbors we have. And we are so close that we have to be in conflict consistently. And that's what people don't understand. When people are complete strangers, they usually don't have a reason to have a conflict. But in this situation we have, this is serious. And if you look at it, the reality of it, Athan, is the fact that this, beyond the security, the physical security, we've been undermined economically for the last maybe 10, 15, 20 years. We do not have a fair trade relationship with Uganda. That's what people don't know. We do not have a fair exchange with Ugandans. We've never had... Uganda said, let's relationship come back to
Uganda or with Ugandans?
With Uganda and Ugandans, because it's trade. Trade is between people. When people say, let the situation come back to normal, I don't know what normal they speak about. Because we have a trade deficit, Rwandans cannot open business in Uganda. Does normal means that Rwanda is going to start now having freedom in Kampala? What does normal mean? To continue to be exploited because we've been exploited consistently. This is just... Closing the border is the least we can do. Ugandans have, they have businesses in Rwanda, which we welcome, in fact. But if you look at the relationship we've had economically, strategically, they've been completely unreliable. So, for example, this issue of the railway. We were supposed to have a railway coming from Mombasa to Kigali through Kampala. The railway came, and apparently now they do not want it to come to Kigali. There's the issue of electricity that comes from Ethiopia.
We have 2 minutes. Or
from Ethiopia through Kenya, through Uganda, through Kigali. The electricity is at the gates of Uganda, from Kenya. We have invested money, Godfrey will tell you, to build a power line up to the gates of Uganda. They can't link us together. But that's electricity. Then we have our airline.
I'll cut
just one more thing. We have the airline, and now we have rebel groups training in Uganda. What does normal means? To come back to letting rebel groups train and people, what exactly does it? There's nothing abnormal. It's been abnormal for 20 years. I'm surprised people are saying let's go back to normal, as though normal is when we are actually being exploited. I don't understand what normal meant.
How can Rwanda, as we get into the conclusion, your last remarks, of course, as we head into the...
I'm excited to hear that the Prime Minister of Uganda has been able to voice that out. Do we assume that there's going to be a much wider conversation? Is that what it means? So I think we could only look forward to what happens next, because I'm sure if a Prime Minister has come out to voice that, they have come to realize that it's a huge problem. And therefore, let's wait and see what kind of conversation are they going to bring on the table. I'm really excited about that.
Of course, I'm giving you 20 seconds as we conclude this.
I think they've said it all. I think one of the things that's important is we need to be strategic. We know that this country has come through a lot, and it has been passed through a lot of adversity. But we've also had a lot of resilience, and in that resilience, we've been able to find innovations.
Absolutely.
So I think the most important thing is to look at how do we continue to grow, how do we continue to sustain our economy. There's opportunities, the free trade area and so on. We need to broaden our markets and think big.
Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen, for joining me on InFocus, and thank you so much for watching. A lot is going to be discussed, and you can be so sure that you can keep the conversation going. UMWIHERERO is starting on the Friday 8th, and we might be coming back to discuss that and more that will be happening in the leadership retreat. And thank you so much for watching. If you need to continue engaging us, the hashtag is InFocusRW. It's me, Ethan Tashobi, and have a very great night.